The first thing that I would like to express is that for all of the Epstein survivors, the victims, and all of those beyond Epstein that are contained in the files, and all of those that are not in the files, there is a connection between power, um, violence, and the silencing of people who have been sexually assaulted. This has been a long-standing issue, and in part, that may be why there has been such a long road towards justice, because there have been unjust systems that have been in place even before now. Just for historical context, in the United States, marital rape was legal even while this nation began with the land of the free, home of the brave, with concepts of liberty, privacy, and freedom. Married women were not afforded that. Courts relied on treatises that said that women had no independent identity apart from their husbands. For centuries leading up until just recent years, husbands could kidnap, rape women that they were married to, even if they were separated, even if divorce papers had been filed. So long as divorces had not been granted yet, courts deferred to the husband and to waivers in American law that made it permissible for men to do this, or at least made it such that they could not be criminally charged and punished for engaging in such heinous crimes. We see much of this today. That's the criminal side. The civil side is that in civil law, it was the same. Spousal immunity, parental immunity meant that men could rape their wives, beat their wives, rape their daughters, beat their daughters, and yet not be found liable in court with civil judgment, because courts came to think of the marital home as places that needed harmony. But what they focused on was only male harmony. In fact, in cases that I've written about where daughters have attempted to sue their fathers after cases of sexual assault and violence, courts over the years in the United States ruled that it would be disruptive to the harmony of the household if girls were allowed to prevail. The idea being that sexual assault and rape against daughters was not unharmonious to the household. What was unharmonious to American courts was girls being able to get justice. So what does this mean in this context? What we've had is a judge saying that these are files that should be made open and available to the public. What's been made open and available is only a fraction of the Epstein files. Horrifically, what's been revealed in these files are the names of individuals who have been raped and sexually assaulted. Even their images have been revealed. This is absolutely shocking and inconsistent with what would be the rule of law, and inconsistent with what we would expect in terms of dignity, integrity with regard to law. And what we've seen is the covering and the protection of individuals who are found in the files. Now, around the world, there have been punishments that we see. There are people who are resigning from seats that they hold, and some of that we've seen in the United States, but it's been very, very slow. There's been a failure to take into account the US president and his mention a number of times in the Epstein files, and with allegations that he too had sexually assaulted someone who was a young girl. We don't know for sure. Those allegations are there, and allegations in the files. There are numerous others who are located in the files with allegations that they have committed sexual violence and assault against the women and the young girls, women now, but girls, at the time in which these matters took place. Look, it's a tragedy. It is a horror. And one of the gravest aspects of this horror is that in real time, while there are survivors who've come forward, we have a seat of American government, two seats. We have the executive and also Congress failing to take the action that is necessary in order for justice to be fully pursued. It's not that there aren't courageous lawmakers who, and it shouldn't take courage to do your job, there are lawmakers who are articulating in this space, who are demanding more, and they should continue to. Now, in terms of your question, what does it take in order to get justice? Well, that part is complicated too in many ways in the United States because people who have been victimized as children, as young people, then experience a statute of limitations in most states, which then limit the amount of time that they have in order to pursue claims against individuals that have harmed them. Some states have looked into this and have attempted to change their laws such that the statutes of limitations would, in fact, either go away or be broader, such that an individual could reasonably have the time that is necessary to think through what has happened to them and then pursue what they believe is the right course of action. Of course, it's very difficult if you've been sexually assaulted at the age of 6, 7, 8, or 15 or 16, and then heading off to work, to college, the military, to think about, well, when do you seek justice for yourself? Of course, that's very hard. And if you have statutes of limitations that place it such that you have only a few years after the age of majority to bring a case, well, that makes it, of course, very difficult, almost impossible for someone to actually cogitate through what they've experienced and then do the transformative work to move to the next stage. So, what I am hoping for is that out of this time that we are in, that we not only address what is urgently important and in front of us, the people who survived Epstein and many of the people who are listed as abusers in those files, but hopefully it also opens the door for deeper, broader, honest conversations in our society that connect power, political power to violence, but that also provides pathways forward, both state-wise and also federally, for individuals to be able to receive justice, to be able to pursue that which would allow them to be able to flourish into their adulthood and move away from the stigmatization and the shaming that has been a part of the legacy of individuals coming forward to articulate about the abuse that they have experienced in their lives. Clearly, there is a reluctance to proceed if it's a high-named individual that is involved. We see that as a result of the Epstein conviction. Limited time in jail, the ability to be able to leave jail and have a life, be able to continue to live his life, and the casting of these poor girls as being prostitutes, as sex workers. So he gets a very light sentence, a slap on the wrist, able to use his plane, able to go to his home. Jail is like an overnight camp, basically, for him. And I think that that is a reflection of the power that he had. Economic power translates to political power in that instance. And so these are dire kinds of cases. And to your point about, well, what kind of evidence are they looking for? Well, this is also very difficult too, because if you're a child and you've been sexually assaulted, if you're a woman, if you're a man and you've been sexually assaulted, unless it is that you've then filed a police report, and it's worth noting that there were police reports that were filed in the case that did lead to Jeffrey Epstein's first criminal prosecution and conviction. But was a police report filed? Well, what 6-year-old is filing a police report? 10-year-old, 14-year-old filing a police report? Was there a rape kit that was done? Well, if you're not filing the police report and you're not going to the emergency room, who's going to take you to the emergency room? I mean, imagine the 14-year-old who had been, or 15-year-old who had been working at a very prestigious place like a Mar-a-Lago and then recruited from there over to Jeffrey Epstein's place doing these massages and then sexually assaulted. There is no blueprint for a child in terms of what it is that they need to do to collect the kind of evidence that is going to be necessary for police and prosecutors later. Here is a problem. Part of the problem is that prosecutors are expecting them to do their cases for them, that they are expecting that young people will have amassed the kinds of evidence, will have had the kinds of conversations, all of these things that they believe give them a stronger foothold in order to bring a case. Now, it does matter. Due process matters, absolutely. And prosecutors are held to a standard where they should pursue, and law enforcement too, making sure that rights, including those who've been criminally accused, are protected. But I think that there's a big gap between making sure, which is required under law, that people who are accused of crimes have their due process protected, have their rights protected. There's a gap between that and then doing the work that is necessary when someone comes forward and says, I was assaulted, I was harmed. There is a different socialization that we need in terms of respecting individuals when they do come forward and looking for the kind of evidence that typically might be overlooked but is important, such as did someone tell a friend, a guardian, a relative of what happened to them? Police and prosecutors can do the work of saying, well, yes, do we have evidence? And yes, we can, that you were coming in and out of that particular place. I mean, even looking at their age, let us not forget that in these states, including in Florida, there are statutory rape laws which actually go to the benefit of these young people. One of the surprising things about the Epstein convictions that took place is that under state law, states consider this automatically to be rape when someone has been sexually assaulted and happens to be under the age of majority. That person doesn't have to do cartwheels to explain what happened, and consent is not something that lawfully can be provided.